you first hit my radar in 2019 when I saw a video of you that I think lots of people saw, of you doing a deadlift. It wasn't a small deadlift, it was like 280 kgs, identifying as a woman and thereby breaking the world record. And that's the first time I ever saw you. And I was like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm just wondering, what's a dude with a computer science degree from Oxford doing that for?
Sure. Well, I wish it was 280. The video was actually 230.
Okay.
Although my personal best at the time was 275. And look, in the mid 2010s is really when I started to notice the Western world in particular shifting into a strange direction. It was in the very early stages of the mainstreaming of what people now refer to as wokeness. At the time, some people were calling it cultural Marxism. A lot of people were calling it the social justice movement. You were hearing about SJW, social justice warriors. I never hear that term anymore now. But it was the relatively early stages of concepts like, I don't know, critical race theory, transgender ideology, super extreme elements of, I don't know, some people call it third or even fourth wave feminism, strange ideas about race, gender, sexuality. All of that stuff was really coming to a head. It was coming out the fringes of academia, and it was really going mainstream. One of the things that, I don't know if this was one of the things that was actually a major catalyst to it, particularly on the gender ideology side, was actually the whole Caitlyn Jenner situation. So I think that was 2015 when Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year after being a woman for less than a year. And one of the most bizarre things I found about that whole situation, which people seem to have forgotten about, was just that no one asked, what exactly does this mean? So all of the magazines, all of the newspapers, all of the TV stations, and any time it was being talked about, it was just like, wow, this is amazing, stunning, brave, she, her, wonderful, Caitlyn, go. And I'm kind of like, isn't this a guy who was Bruce Jenner, who won like Olympic medals and has been a man for, I think, 60-ish years at the time? Like, I identify as a woman. Like, what does that mean? It was like everyone just either tacitly accepted it or celebrated it or just shut up and didn't ask any questions because they didn't want to be called a bigot. Going a little beyond that into, later 2015, 2016, is when I started noticing the situation happening in sports. So there was an MMA fighter, Fallon Fox, who had previously competed in the male category, who was then identifying as a woman and competing in MMA and causing some serious damage to some women. There were stories happening in the world of athletics and weightlifting, all of these different sports. I started to just notice this stuff happening early, and that's just one side of it. There was the strange conversations that were going on around race. So my entire life being brought up both in Saudi Arabia and in the UK and just being raised the way I was, through the 90s, through the 2000s, even into the early 2010s, it seems like, racism has been dying out for many, many decades at this point. And suddenly, people were being told, whether you're white or you're black or you're whatever race or ethnicity you are, all of a sudden, you were supposed to care about race again. And you were supposed to judge people to some degree based on their race or treat people somehow differently based on their race. It was very antithetical to everything that I had been raised with and what I'd experienced in school and in university. And again, this wasn't just coming from some weird fringe. These notions were being promoted in universities in particular, but also it was seeping into schools, it was seeping into the media discourse, it was starting to be pushed by companies, corporations, governments were starting to promote identity politics in all sorts of ways. Similarly, when I was a kid or when I was a teen, you'd hear about the LGB movement, and then it became LGBT, and then it became LGBTQ, and then it became LGBTQI, and then they kept adding more and more letters. And again, for the past few decades, the notion had been, look, some people are gay, some people are same-sex attracted, they shouldn't be mistreated, they shouldn't be discriminated against, they shouldn't be bullied or gay bashed or whatever it is. It's like, yeah, cool, like I'm on board with that, right? I'm not on board with persecuting or discriminating against people. But then it got pushed further than that. It went beyond the whole gay marriage debate, which I think was mostly settled in the West by around the mid-2010s. And then it had just sort of, the train went past the station and it just started being, men can become women, women can be men, people can make up their own pronouns. In fact, there aren't just two genders anymore now, there's infinite. It just started getting really weird. And I started noticing all this and speaking about it to people, mainly in private, just everyday conversations with friends and family and stuff. And then it just got to a point, particularly, it kept increasing, 2017, 2018, and it got to a point where I realized that, okay, this is not just, there's something weird going on here, and it's strange that not a lot of people are pushing back against this, because some of these ideas are nonsensical and are actually dangerous, because you are asking and demanding people to even go as far as suspending reality and outright lying about something as essential as basic human biology. And this is going to have very severe consequences. So in late 2018, I just started to speak up a little bit more on my platforms, particularly on Twitter. So I've been on Twitter since, now X. I've been on there since 2009. I've been on social media in general for 20 years at this point. I joined Facebook in 2004. So I've been on social media a long time, but I mainly was just using it as a vehicle to connect with my fans, promote my music, put out the occasional music video, let people know where I'm going to be performing, that kind of stuff. I never viewed myself as any type of cultural warrior or political figure or anything like that. I never thought that my ideas were even particularly interesting. I mean, to this day, I think 90% of what I put out there on social media and say on podcasts or say on stages is what should be common sense. I often joke that, I'm not a radical or an extremist. I'm a normal person from 2005. And I just started to, at the same time, of course, you'd had Brexit happen in the UK at this point. You'd had the first Trump election happen and all of the strange response to that it was a very similar narrative in both countries where it was just like, anyone who voted for this is racist or is a bigot or is hateful. And I was like, even if you don't support Brexit or you don't support Trump, that's a really stupid and asinine way to view your own country, your own population, but also this issue. It's just so closed-minded.